Welcome back, everybody. I just want to do a quick review of the key vocabulary for the natural selection unit. And so there's four vocab terms that are really important to this unit lesson. And so the first one that is important is the vocabulary word reproduce. So reproduce means to copy something. And in terms of this, we're looking at making more of the same species. So having babies, right? And so we call those babies in science, we call them offspring. And so remember when we talked about the characteristics of living things, one of the things that organisms had to be able to do was to reproduce. Just keep in mind that sometimes there are organisms within the species that for whatever reason can't reproduce. But in general, overall, the species can reproduce. Second vocabulary word is sexual reproduction. So when we talked about the fact that organisms have to be able to reproduce to be considered alive, sexual reproduction is only one of two types of reproduction, right? So asexual was one, sexual was another. So asexual reproduction, asexual reproduction is just when the DNA of the organism duplicates and the organism just splits in half. So you have clones of the original cell. Okay, there's no combining of the genetic material. But when you look at this slide, we're talking about sexual reproduction. And sexual reproduction means that there have to be two parents. There has to be a mom, there has to be a dad. Now, remember when we talked about sexual reproduction, and then we looked at DNA in the last unit. We said that sexual reproduction has to have two parents, and that when you have two parents, you get half of the DNA from your mom, half of the DNA from your dad. Well, in humans, we have 23 pair or 46 chromosomes. So 23 of your chromosomes were in the sperm, 23 were in the egg, and when they combined, that's 46. And because every sperm is different and every egg is different, every child is different unless you are a twin or a triplet, an identical twin or a triplet. And so because you get your half your DNA from your dad, half your DNA from your mom. You could be in a family of 5 kids. One kid looks just like the mom. One kid looks like the dad. Some kids look like a mixture. And then some kids don't look as much like the parents as the rest of the siblings. It's because the sperm and the egg are very different. And so there's different genetic combinations. And so when we look at the word generation, which is the third vocabulary, in biology, we talk about generations as being produced or being born in the same time. So for human beings, that time span is typically anywhere between 15 and 20 or even 25 years. Okay, that's considered a generation. So you've heard of baby boomers, Gen X's, millennials. Those are all born within a certain time frame. Interesting thing is their generation times are different depending on the organism. If we're talking about some insects only have a few days to live, some insects have a few weeks, so their generation time is very, very short compared to a human being's, right? And then you have bacteria who reproduces every 20 minutes, right? So that's a really fast generation time. But typically humans, 15 to 20 years. The last vocab term in this section is the vocab term, and that is variation. Variation means differences in traits across organisms in the same species. So all you have to do is look around your classroom, right? And you have people in terms of the traits, their eye color. You could have people that have brown eyes. You could have people whose eyes are so brown they're almost black. You have people that have blue eyes, amber eyes, green eyes. And those are the same trait, but there's differences. That's variation, right? And so eye color, hair texture, skin color. Those are all variations of the same trait, right? Different skin colors, variation of skin color trait, and so on and so forth. And so your terms are reproduce, to produce more babies. Sexual reproduction, 2 parents. Generation, individuals in that species born around the same time. And then the last one is variation. So it's differences in those traits. And so those are the vocab words that you want to have your head wrapped around for this section. If you need review, come on back to the Screencastify. If you still don't get it, ask your teacher. Have a nice day.